But of course, first up, let's go straight to our top guest of the hour. And she is, of course, the Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch MP. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. There is a heck of a lot to talk about today. Let's start with matters. Let's start with matters overseas, because I think you, like everyone else in our audience, will have been sort of caught in the whirlwind of what the heck is going on with Donald Trump and Greenland and all these threats, tariffs, the like. This whirlwind of diplomacy yesterday. Apparently a bit of Trump whispering going on. A Greenland deal. Do you think that what we know so far is a good deal for Europe, including Britain?
Well, it's actually hard to understand exactly what's been agreed. It looks like everyone's taking a breath. I think the good news for our country is that he is not putting those tariffs on. Those would have been a disaster. I speak to businesses all over the country, the bigger ones in particular that export to the US, saying they're losing business, and US payers are having, US customers are having to pay loads more to buy our products. That's not good for the UK or the United States.
How would you be dealing with Donald Trump? Because there's a lot of talk that there's this special relationship between not just the UK and the US, but also between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. A rather unlikely relationship, I think, looking at the two men from afar. But how would you have dealt with all of this?
Well, I think Donald Trump is someone who loves to do deals. And if he sees you as somebody who is someone he can do business with, it makes life easier. But what he actually really respects more than anything is strength. And countries that project strength, he respects. Countries that project weakness, he disrespects. And that's why I want to see our Prime Minister working in our national interest. When I met Donald Trump in September at the state banquet, he was talking about drilling in the North Sea, a view he and I share. We should be using our own energy resources, not relying on imports from other countries. And he said that if you stop losing your own energy resources, if you stop using your own energy resources, you become weak. So showing strength, strengthening your own country, spending much more money on defence and looking after UK PLC is what I would be doing. Was
he right, Donald Trump, when he said we've got problems in this country, that Europe is going in the wrong direction, including Britain, issues particularly with immigration and net zero? Was there anything he said there that wasn't completely true?
Well, Julia, you know my views on net zero. Even when we were in government, I was the one saying that this is the wrong idea. We need to tackle climate change. Bankrupting ourselves and deindustrializing, giving everything to China is not the way. So you know my views on that.
So he was right.
And on immigration, it was too high. Yeah, well,
so Donald Trump
I said that as well. Of course he's right. Net zero is not the... Well, Julia, if you're looking for a headline that Donald Trump was right, you can write that headline. You don't need me to say it. What I'm saying is that on net zero, we were going in the wrong direction. On immigration, it was too high. And I'm the leader of the party now. I'm acknowledging the mistakes of the past, but showing what the future is going to be. I heard you talking with Jeremy about the Convention on Human Rights. You know, we're now leaving the Convention on Human Rights if Conservatives come to government. We will have a proper human rights framework that works in our national interest and looks after people, rather than one that lets people come here from all over the world and stay here, get benefits, and impossible to deport them. That's not what we want to see.
Well, you mentioned the European Convention on Human Rights there, and that ties into this extraordinary vote yesterday, the Troubles Bill by the government, which is basically removing the conditional immunity that veterans who fought in Northern Ireland have had from prosecution. Senior figures in the SAS, veterans, said, look, this could risk lives. It's an absolute slap in the face for those who did fight there. You've expressed concerns about how much this could damage soldiers in the here and the now. What is your big concern about this?
It's more than a concern, Julia. I'm absolutely appalled. This will be a disaster. I met with a large group of veterans just yesterday. It isn't just the veterans who are upset and worried about this. It's serving soldiers. Young people will not join the army if they think that they're going to be hounded through the courts. We have elderly people being hounded through the courts. We put in legislation to protect our veterans. Keir Starmer is standing against them. And we had a vote yesterday to protect them. Conservatives voted to protect veterans. Keir Starmer, Labour, voted against. Nigel Farage didn't vote. Rob Jenrick didn't vote. The Conservative Party is the only party that is fighting for our veterans. We cannot have people given orders by politicians, follow those orders, and then 30, 40 years later, they end up in the dock, and no one asks who was it that gave you the order. The British Army saves lives, and our troops who are stationed in Northern Ireland were there to protect people and to save lives, and I want to make sure that we do right by all of our soldiers, all of our veterans, whether they're serving or will serve or have served. I want them to know that the Conservative Party has got their back.
Well, again, let's talk about defence. And you mentioned earlier that Donald Trump, respects countries that are strong. Right now, we sort of, we talk the talk, but we don't really walk the walk, do we? And one of the interesting points that a lot of people were making about Greenland, interestingly, was, actually, the Danes or even the European Union can't defend Greenland. We're not really right now able to completely defend Ukraine on our own without American help. Do we need to spend more on defence? You've committed to spending more, but let's face it, every former defence chief we've had, and even the current ones, are saying we need way more money spent than even you and Farage and others are suggesting. We're talking about minimum 5% of GDP right now, today, and none of that money being spent on paying Mauritius for the Chagos Islands or anything like that, being spent on hardware and on fighting forces. Would you be willing to do that, and where would you get the money from for that?
So one of the things that I've been talking about is how Labour is all about welfare. It's welfare versus weapons. We want to see the welfare budget cut, and we want to see that money going into areas that will grow the economy and on defence. That is a huge thing that needs to be done, otherwise none of it is going to work. Since 1985, defence spending went down pretty much every year until that war in Ukraine in 2022, when we started increasing it, because everybody thought that it was going to be peaceful times forever. The Cold War was won, we were spending the peace dividend, we've now spent it all. It's now time to tool up.
You say tool up, again, what would you commit to that would be realistically enough to mean that we could actually be a serious military force that could not just protect our allies, but also protect our own borders?
Well, so on the regulatory side, leaving the ECHR, we've got a borders plan as well, a removals force. We need to get people who are a danger to our internal security out. That is part of defence. We need to start spending 3% by the end of this Parliament. I know that there's some people talking about a lot more.
No, anybody who knows anything about defence is talking about a heck of a lot more, and not by the end of this Parliament, today.
So spending 5% today is not something that even the defence chiefs are saying. We're talking about 3% at the end of this Parliament. We're on 2.5% right now. The fact is, we're not growing. Where is the money going to come from? This is not even just about public spending. We are borrowing. We are borrowing to pay welfare. We need to cut the deficit. We need to cut all this borrowing down, and that means cutting public spending. We are looking at a plan to get to 3% by the end of this Parliament. That is the most ambitious plan. Labour's plan is 3% sometime around 2034. That's absolutely ridiculous. But we need to be realistic about where the money is coming from now. We have spent a lot of time living off the peace dividend of the past. It's time to focus on the future.
OK, and just on specific issues that have been in the news the last couple of days, would you veto the approval of the Chinese mega embassy just across the road from our studio right now? And would you veto the giving away of the Chagos Islands?
Yes and yes. We're calling that Chinese super embassy a spy hub. I mean, we're actually having to move cables away because of security concerns about spying. That's not something that should be allowed. And it doesn't matter that some people are saying it'll be fine, we'll be able to manage it. Do you remember Huawei? We had these same concerns with Huawei, and the security analysis was that it would probably be fine. We ended up having, but that was based on the advice. It's not politicians who do the. But this is what I'm talking about. It's the security advice. David Cameron is not a security analyst. We get advice from the security services, and they tell us this is what we think you should do. Now I'm saying we should take a political decision not to do it. That sometimes even the security advice ends up being wrong in hindsight. We took that advice. We ended up having to strip out Huawei from our infrastructure. Keir Starmer is now saying, oh, well, the advice says this. I am saying that it's time for politicians to bring the politics into it, think about the risk, take the politically right decision, not just the advice that looks fine today but will be out of date tomorrow.
Would you be visiting China next week, as the Prime Minister is doing?
Not until we resolve the issues around the case of Chinese spies in Parliament. Remember the case of the alleged spies. That's something that should have been seen through. China, as our security services have said, attacks our country in all sorts of ways, cybersecurity and so on. We've seen many companies suffer from that. There's a lot of intellectual property theft. It is a country we trade a lot with, but they have been an economic threat. They have been a threat to us. We need to make sure that we deal with those issues before we pretend everything is fine.
Okay.
And, you know, on Chagos as well, that is a deal that benefits China, paying Mauritius £35 billion. That's money that should go into real defense to keep, to keep territory we already own, but surrender the sovereignty of it. That's completely wrong.
Okay, let's talk about things closer to home.
Keep a base on territory you already own.
Well, indeed. A vote last night by the House of Lords, an amendment to a schools bill going through Parliament. The Lords have voted for a ban on social media for all under 16s. Lots of pressure being put on the Prime Minister. He's already said he's going to open a consultation on that this week, following the Australian ban on the very same thing brought in December. Would you support a social media ban for under 16s?
Julia, that is my policy. I've been banging on about it for ages, and that was a Conservative amendment. It wasn't just a Lord's amendment. Okay. It was a Conservative amendment. Lord Nash put that down. That is something we want to see. I think we'll get another U-turn from Keir Starmer, but I was absolutely delighted that we won that vote. Those platforms are designed to be addictive. They're for adults, not for children. Companies should not be profiting from children's distraction or anxiety.
I agree with all of that. I've got now an adult child. You've got 3 children under 16. But you oppose compulsory digital ID because, you know, we don't want people. We're not a papers, please society. We don't want people having to constantly identify themselves as adults. How do we identify who children are on social media or on their phones unless people can identify that they're an adult? In which case, you've basically got, because people are on social media, pretty much everybody, compulsory ID.
So there are, I'm completely opposed to mandatory digital ID, you're right. But there are other ways, and this is one of the things that we need to now start talking about. You know, there's facial recognition where the data is not kept before you set up the account. Looking at the face of the person who is setting it up is one option. We should explore that. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but things have moved on from the technology of even 5 years ago, let alone 10, 20 years ago.
But that doesn't allow
and
anonymity.
The fact is, this...
What about Iranian protesters who want to get their message out about the slaughter on the streets of Iran? How would they be able to do that if they had to identify themselves?
Julia, I'm interested in British children. I'm interested in British children and keeping them safe. I had a cousin who killed himself because he was spending a lot of time on social media and got radicalized and saw things and started believing things that were not true. This is a very serious issue. There's always a reason why we shouldn't do certain things, but I believe that this is the right thing. Social media should be for adults. Iranian protesters are not children. They are adults, and there will be ways. I think we should look very carefully to make sure that we get that balance right. What I want is freedom for adults, protection for children.
But you can't have freedom for adults, protection for children, unless you can identify who is who. That's why, you know, if you're under the age of 25, you go in a supermarket, you want to buy alcohol, not under the age of 18, under the age of 25, you are likely to be asked for ID to prove your age. Are we not, by the back door, going to be opening the way for governments to decide these things? I agree with you. I don't want kids on social media under 16. But I also think we've got a lot of power. Our governments around the West could be pressuring these companies to have algorithms that don't direct. I think these things are dangerous for adults as well as children. You know, anorexia and suicide and goodness knows what else. Extremism, Andrew Tate, you name it.
But Julia, here's the thing. If we're worried about protecting anonymity, let me tell you now, those social media companies know everything about us. TikTok knows more about the children in the UK, that's a Chinese company, than anything the government has ever done. That, for me, is a real problem. In 10, 20 years' time, if we don't do this, China is going to know everything about our young people as adults, who their friends are, what they like, while we've been sitting twiddling our thumbs, having arguments about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Let's get serious.
We could just ban TikTok.
Well, yes, but it's not the only social media platform.
Okay, all right, but that's the one owned by the Chinese. Let's talk about just party affairs. You've said when anyone asks you about Robert Jenrick, and he was in the studio only about an hour ago talking to my colleague Jeremy Carr, you always say, no, Robert Jenrick is Farage's problem now. You know, he's not my problem. You got rid of him. How much of a problem was Robert Jenrick to you on a day-to-day basis while he was still in your shadow cabinet?
Well, it's become clear that actually he was spending his time undermining the party rather than supporting the party. He would not use the word Conservatives. He had left the team, really, and what I'm trying to show is that the party is about public service, not self-service. If you're here just because you want to be on telly, this is not the party for you. We need people who are going to be focused on making people's lives better with better policy, better arguments, getting out there, campaigning.
OK. Are you glad to be shot of him?
Well, I am happy that my team is more united than ever. I have a great new Shadow Justice Secretary in Nick Timothy, somebody who was scoring runs for the party,
yep.
You know, managed to get the West Midlands police officer gone. That was all Nick. I'm really proud of what he did. That's the kind of thing that I want to see my front benchers doing.
But you said you didn't think there'd be any, last week there wouldn't be any more defections, and you immediately had Andrew Rossendale, again, another front bencher, defecting.
I said there would be no defections from the Shadow Cabinet. People are twisting my words.
Okay.
I was asked, will there be defections for the Shadow Cabinet? And I said, absolutely
and
not.
you said this week, if you're going to go now, are you expecting anyone else to announce before the weekend?
Well, I don't know. People know what's in their hearts, but I am telling people this is what I'm doing with the party. We are a party of the centre-right. We're on the right. If you don't want to go that direction, then you should leave. If you're here for yourself or because you want to be on telly or you just want to be in whichever party is polling highest, then you need to go as well. Okay. I want people to know that this is a serious party focused on the needs of the public.
Okay. I know we haven't got much time left. I just want to ask you, so Jacob Rees-Mogg was on my show yesterday talking about the right to unite and saying that, look, if there is no majority for either party, Reform or the Tories at the next election, and we know, look, the next 3 years is a long time in politics, the right to basically say, look, we're not going to form a pact, we're not going to say we're going to go into coalition, our aim is a majority. If, however, we don't get one, in a bid to stop these so-called, but definitely not progressives, Labour, Lib Dems, Greens and others forming a coalition government, we will work, we will have a coalition with Reform, and Reform would have a coalition with you. That would be the right thing for the centre-right, wouldn't it?
Well, we are the party of the centre-right. I mean, Mr. Jenrick was on your show this morning saying that he wanted Labour MPs to join Reform. That's not uniting the right. He's asking the left to join Reform because they are a populist party. They're telling everybody, whether they're left or right, whatever it is they want to hear. And what I'm saying is that we need people who are authentic Conservatives. Reform have said that their ambition is to destroy the Conservative Party. Nigel Farage has said it. A lot of his acolytes have said it. You know, they are a one-man band trying to destroy the Conservative Party because they're angry about goodness knows what from the past. But I don't have time for that. All of this psychodrama, enough. I want people to know what the Conservative Party is offering. This is our offer at the election, and we hope that the public will believe that we are the only credible alternative to Labour.
But you've got so-called authentic Conservatives in your party who think the Brexit was the wrong thing. They try to fight against the outcome of a democratic vote, the biggest in British history, and they think that we shouldn't have national sovereignty. A lot of them, I mean, don't even think that we should have limits on immigration for good. They want, you know, I mean, are they true Conservatives? Are they authentic Conservatives?
Julia, remember that Boris Johnson removed those people who didn't want Brexit and who were trying to stop it from the party back in 2019. I'm very proud of Conservative MPs. I have a great team. We are one family. Yes, sometimes we have differing views. We are not a dictatorship, but we're also not a one-man band. That's Reform. We are a party where you can have views, but I'm the leader and I'm the one who sets the policy, and I think people know where I stand.
Just finally, on an issue I know it's close to your heart and my heart, which is where women's rights, when they are trampled on by so-called trans rights. The government appears still to not have accepted the Supreme Court ruling last April that made it very clear what the law was regarding to single-sex spaces. You were Equalities Minister when under the Conservatives in power. Do you think that Keir Starmer still believes that only 99.9% of women don't have a penis, in which case 0.1%, roughly 30,000 of us, do?
Yes. The fact that he even said that shows what an odd man he is. To be honest, I don't think he knows what he believes. He's all over the place. He's like a plastic bag blowing in the wind. Wherever the wind takes him, that's where he goes. The Conservative Party has been very clear that biological sex is the only definition of sex that is relevant for the Equality Act. The Supreme Court has upheld that. But it's not just Labour that's doing this. You know, in Scotland as well, the SNP doing a lot of nonsense. I was up there last week speaking to Sandy Peggy. You know, we had the success of the Jennifer Millay case. It's mostly nurses, actually, in the NHS who seem to be bearing the brunt of this. There's a problem in the NHS, and Claire Coutinho, who's the Shadow Minister for Equalities, is doing a lot of work on that to bring this out into the open.
OK, we've covered a lot of ground. I now have to let you go. Kemi Badenoch, great to have you on the show. Hope you'll come back more often and talk to our audience. I'm sure they'd like to hear more from you. Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch, thank you indeed for joining us. 10:24 is the time. Love to hear your thoughts on what she had to say. Love to hear your thoughts on all the big stories.